It's preparing. Sweet. All right. Good evening, everyone. Who's ever watching out in the world. Thank you for joining us. If you see the screen the way I think you see the screen, you should probably see three people to the bottom of me, and if their screens, they're maybe above me. However, we're formatted. Welcome to the second installment of the Texas Poetry Roadshow. I am your Texas Poet Laureate, Lupe Mendez, and joining me this evening are another amazing cadre of poets hailing from all over Texas, and I am super grateful that they are with me. And tonight we are going to wow you with lots of poetry and amazing backgrounds because everybody has a really nifty background, and we're all done up, and everything looks great, and we look amazing. And we'll go from there. For those of you that aren't used to how these are going to work, we will have a reading, then we will go into a couple of questions that we will just bounce off of around each other. I will open with a poem, I will close with a poem, but I have been very sneaky and have invited a bunch of poets to showcase their work and their amazingness and work that route. So without further ado, I'm going to give everybody's bios in the order that they will read, and we can go from there. And we go, yeah, okay. So beginning with Dulcie Vuluthekaran, who is a poet, a curriculum expert from Iowa Colony, Texas, a town so small that it has 0 traffic lights, which Dulcie, we're gonna need to talk about them traffic lights. A former member of the Houston VIP and Slam Balabajumba, Dulcie writes about her childhood as a third culture kid and the immigrant experience when she's not teaching English or schooling folks in ELA curriculum. She is tinkering with poetry and writing children's books. And I don't know if I was supposed to tell the public that, but I've read one of her children's books and I'm lighting candles because that thing is fire. Next, dear friend, compadre, Edward Vidaurre is an award-winning poet of 8 collections of poetry, a publisher and editor-in-chief of Flower Song Press and Juventud Press, editor of several anthologies, and a 22 inductee as a distinguished member of the Texas Institute of Letters. You can follow him on Twitter at Vidaurre Edward and on Instagram at Edward_Vidaurre. He served previously as the McAllen Poet Laureate a few years back, and it's amazing to see you and to read with you again. And then lastly, Andrea Sanderson is the first Black Poet Laureate of San Antonio, 2020 through 2023. She is a San Antonio native. Her dynamic performance style is an originally crafted fusion of spoken word poetry, hip hop, and soulful rhythm and blues. She is a recipient of numerous awards, including Dream Voice, People's Choice Award, Best Live Entertainment / Band Musical of the Year by the 17th Annual C Awards, Best Literary Advocate 2021 San Antonio Magazine, and the Arts and Letters Award from Friends of the San Antonio Public Library in 2020. Best Local Poet 2021 by the San Antonio Current. She serves as a teaching artist for Gemini Inc., and in 2021, she received an Academy American Poets Laureate Fellowship. Vocab's debut book is entitled She Lives in Music and was released by Flower Song Press in February of 2020. That's the book there. Get that thing. Her music is available on all music streaming platforms. For more information, you can visit her website, AndreaVocabSanderson.com, on Instagram at Vocabulous, and for her book, visit www.flowersongpress.com/Sanderson. With that said, my name is Ruben Mendez. Again, I am your poet laureate / organizer folk. And I'm going to read one poem and then we'll get to everybody else and then keep it flowing. I think I'm going to change the way the view goes. I don't know if the view changes with you guys or not, but I'm going to flip it to speaker
Lupe didn't tell y'all that he has a new book out, and y'all should go get that, and it's great.
I have a book. It's an older book. Why I'm like
it's new to me. You should get that.
And so here's my work. Jesus don't like white rooms, white girls barefoot, nails, crosses, harps, wings, stained glass, prayers before war, sour grapes, thorns, being dunked in a river, mangers, wooden objects, crowns, metal, initials, portraits, statues, white statues, the way you treat money, the way you treat women, hammers, spears, swords, leather, the time it takes to say a rosary in Spanish, a rosario in English and Latin, a rosary, the choir lady who jumps the half beat in a measure early, your church fund, the way you treat the old, the gospel according to you, lit candles, Sunday mornings, Christmas, Easter, Palm Sunday, Black Friday, a splinter in your eye, a log in his, rocks, whips, crowds, gold lambs, parables, tongues on fire, how you act before you go to church, your church, high taxes, your church, bingos after service, walking alone in a garden, in a desert, on water, dinner by himself. Awkward poll. So moving with that, Dulcie, you will read first.
Well, first of all, I'm grateful that the good people of YouTube didn't hear me screaming, because I screamed to that poem. Thank you so much for sharing that and for this wonderful opportunity, Lupe. Again, my name is Dulcie Vuluthekaran, and I am so excited to be here. I'm actually going to start with a poem based on a weird scientific fact that I found just when I was gallivanting through the Googs. Um, so the fact that I found is that hiccups protect lungs from gills that we don't have anymore. So back in the gap, we used to have gills, and now we don't have gills anymore. So that was new news to me, and I kind of explored my feelings on that through a poem. So I'll start with that. Here we go. Poem titled Hiccups Protect Lungs from Gills You Don't Have Anymore. So I couldn't think of anything more original. The haunted cry of ghosts, a bell ringer summoning dead congregations, a priest who exorcises nothing but dust and air. You are a relic, there in the no man's land between air and water. A record skipping against the voice box, an unwound clock ticking the same few seconds. Is it hiccup or ancient ancestor of sob? Once we breathed in the sea and rested between sinuous fronds of kelp. The viscous forests are home, or perhaps even deeper, where the brittle stars and hagfish dream of picking at whalebone. And without the accordion swell, have we lost our song? Are your jerks of air a hymn or fishbone lodged in the throat? The knocking spirit within us that refuses to turn fossil and surrender, why stand sentry when even our bones have forgotten the chill of the ocean floor? And that's that piece. All righty. So now I will take you through a small journey through my childhood. So when I was 6, we were living in the Middle East, and there was a war. And because of the war, our family left the Middle East and moved back to India. And because I did not have a whole lot of parental supervision, I got head lice. And so here's a poem about that. It's called 7. At 7, I was constantly itching my head. All the creepy crawlies had suddenly converged to squat upon my scalp, parasitic bloodsuckers that engorged themselves until fatly swollen. At night, I would lay awake, crying and groaning, scratching at the lice until I felt blood and flesh under the fingernail. I scratched out whatever scabs formed, and eventually, when my hand came away, there would be bits of black, brown, red, and yellow pus. Stinking and rotting, I needed my mother, but she was nowhere to be found. A distant war had caught her in its claws and refused to let go. My father, a hulk of grief, let me walk around the polished concrete of my grandmother's house, pulling out chunks of hair and smelling like disease. I couldn't stop. A dirty habit formed like the crust of yellow pus around the craters I dug in my head, a haven for the blind white nits and their spider-like parents. At dusk, when the imam sang the call to prayer, I would be by the rosebed, listening for the satisfying click of death between my bloodied fingernails. Destruction is so simple. A family, their home, the bombs that made craters of their china cabinets and bed linens. I needed my mother. But she was scuttling away from soldiers who needed to hear the satisfying thump of scurrying bodies to appease their bloodlust. At night, she lay on cold airport floors crying for my father, gouging her mind of the nest they had built in someone else's land, waiting for scabs to form. And that's that poem. All right. So then after that, my siblings and I went to boarding school, clearly because Kuwait was no longer a safe place for us to live. So we shuttled between the Middle East and India for about 10 years, going to boarding school. It was always difficult leaving our parents and going back to school. So, um, if you're the child of immigrant parents, you're always told that we're going to do whatever's necessary for your future. So this is sort of a poem of me kind of dealing with those things. It's called Leaving Fahil Kuwait for Boarding School in Uti, India on the 10:15 to Cochin International. We sit in the back seat of the car, street lights towering sentinels watching with cold electric eyes as Pa takes us closer and closer towards the airport. Outside, the air is dry and static. The air inside smells like brute and oath and grief. My mother is always silent on these last rides when her chicks will board a plane and be gone for 6 months. My sister and I hold our tears in our mouths like a grape we dare not crush. Four silos hurtling towards the check in, last minute hugs, reminders to get good grades this term, how expensive boarding school is. Everything's made to be broken, sings John Resnick, and here we are breaking. The mirages shimmer on the dark road. We are still children. They are adults with teeth and expectations firmly set. In the future, we will be a family again. The silent elegy is only for now, only to mourn what must be done for your future. We wave with unblinking eyes from the gate. Their disembodied hands blur over a walled area above us. Resolutely, we set our backs to them and break away onto the plain. That's that. All right, and here's one last poem. It's a poem about a wedding that takes place in an ice facility. We go. So it's in 5 parts, and I will just say the numbers since we can't see it. It's called A Wedding. 1. The corrections officers are bluebell and water chicken bread, red and crag-faced, hulking belts pregnant with radio, handcuff, baton, firearm. Sweat stains under the arms of hunter green uniform. American flag patches on wrinkled sleeves. 2. They bring him in handcuffed. No, shackled. He inches towards me, feet skidding in oversized slides. The red prison scrubs are several sizes too big. He is a mast wrapped in a bloody sail. The beast he once was tamed in the claws of this place. He is a mewling version of himself. 3. The glassy-eyed minister won't perform the ceremony until I pay him. He folds the $200 notes and slides them into the breast pocket of a faded suit. The license looks valid. The man of God blesses us with a munificent smile. He garbles a script. The couple stand, sobbing against the cold wall. Forever joined, we receive communion from a cracked cup. 4. The room has no windows. 5. The night before, my sister gives me a pair of drop earrings, something blue, she whispers, and asks if I am sure. I am not. Thank you, everybody, for listening to my poems. Thank you, Lupe, for inviting me.
Dulcie, I just need you to give me like writing lessons or something, because this fire, like all the time, just it's amazing.
Like we're supposed to move on and live our lives right now.
Right? Like that's like where we led. Like, and then Dulcie's like, and these are my poems. Okay, Papa. Like, boom. And then
Who is next?
and then Dulcie plays it like, can we go get a smoothie? Like, no, what? Anyways, all that said, thank you, Dulcie. That's brilliant. Iowa Colony. Everyone, this reading is going to serve to fundraise for a street light and a stoplight in Dulcie's town. We're just going to do that. That's what this is. So the next individual to read this evening, Edward Vidaurre, without a doubt, one of the hardest working poets I've ever known anywhere in the great state of Texas. Edward is a dear friend, and homie, it's so good to be in the same space together.
Thank you.
Whenever you're ready, sir.
Thank you. Likewise, thank you for this opportunity, and thank you to the other poets that are here with us. It's a treat. Okay. So let's see. All right. I'm waiting for my child to write her story. I tell her it'll help her find answers, but her heartbeat drives her mad. Daddy, I just want to sleep. Daddy, I don't want to wake. Daddy, I don't know why I feel this way. I'm waiting. I tell her avocados are still expensive, but I have faith that it's temporary. Like a toothache, temporary. Like pain from when you stump a toe, temporary. Like rain in the forecast, temporary. Like a hummingbird between the eyes, temporary. In my dreams I walk, heartaches on a leash, and I walk with a hole in my head from a wound from a prior dream. The scene is green, artichoke green, with brown waves on sandy shores. The ocean waves are asparagus sticks, and my child builds sandcastles with the undertaker's shovel and black lipstick. Melatonin vibrations, and a barge passes by blowing a trumpet, signaling a red tide on the way. Here come the sharks. I'm looking for my child now. She's getting the knives sharpened and strikes a match. In my dreams, I sing. I call the sound saguaro and sangre de cusuco. I sing it long and soulful, sans the blues and jazz. I pause to speak haiku lines and then wait for rain. Wait, wait, wait. Her heartbeat sounds different at 3 a.m. I put my head to her chest, and there's a skateboarder riding her veins, doing slides and heel flips, nollies and grinds. I'm waiting for Billie Holiday to exit the subway and for Ginsberg to bring the sheets in from the clothesline. Hollywood actors, I better not find out you don't like popcorn or sticky floors at movie theaters or velvet curtains. I'm waiting for my trophy like all of you. My dreams end with curtain calls, even when they see me with a hole in my head and daisy seeds in my closed fists. I'm waiting for the hole in the sky to release the turtlenecked apocalypse army angels with rainbow sashes to descend and take our jobs. Send the people that eat out and never tip to work the cabbage fields of Gunma. Send the male politicians with more than 2 terms to prison with permanent lip tattoos and eyelash extensions. Send the 1-term president to look up the rocket's ass at launch over at Boca Chica Boulevard. Send the street vendors glory. Send the gun owners self-kits on how to amputate their trigger fingers. Send a bouquet of emery flowers to all women that have had abortions. Send me an angel. Send me an angel right now, right now. What if Joy Harjo knew the secret to healing, and horses carried all the poems in their throats, songs of native lands, songs, songs, songs. The river gropes the ankles of running steed. If a horse looks up to the sky, what forgiveness does it seek? As a child, I wondered what language was spoken through their neigh, what music slices through their hooves. A man painted horses in reds and purples. The man set the stallions against a New Mexico sunset. Is this what Joy Harjo meant of them cutting into the edge of the sky? What strength, what speed, what if they kept running? What if Joy Harjo knew the secret to healing and horses carried all the poems in their throats? Songs of native lands, songs, songs, songs. You can never bury the innocent. Sooner or later, their blood will call. Sing, sing, scream through cheering greed. I stopped to watch glory in a brown body and a black mane somewhere in between my move from California to Texas. I was already feeling the heat of the border as it grazed quietly and thought, what patience, what beauty, what eyes watching me cry. The man who painted horses moved to Honduras without the color green. Now all of his horses fly, fly, fly. Let's send our P to Guatemala. They will come clothed as fragrance. They will come asking for kisses. They will come asking for a bowl of ants. They will drink all the rainwater you've saved for the drought-filled summers. They will peel the mangoes and leave the skins for the possums to feed on when everyone is dreaming. They will come with fog. They will come with death. They will come when you're the happiest. They will come when you're putting on your socks. They will come running into your arms as an open wound in clots, unstitched to avenge the past, just to make you suffer some more. Oh, how you'll suffer. You'll run into the rivers, hands spread open, wide-eyed and hopeful. You'll fly into the cages. You'll be clothed in aluminum. You'll mourn the sun. You'll still hear the churning of the beast. You'll hit a wall, concrete to the face, smashing your dreams, making you hate your language and religion, making you regret you ever wanted to trade suffering and death for hope. At least suffering and hate invested in you. Hope never planned on opening its door. God is an open wound, a kung fu movie and a celestial sicario. God made our president with leftover road cotton and grackle droppings. His sandals are of leftover human skin from the factory of suicide rock stars. Today he wears the kneecaps of Janice to match his UFO belt. God is unfazed at 3 p.m. He whispers to me from a 6 feet distance. God lays naked on steel surfaces with his long hair covering the shadow of men. God has a sticker on his chest that reads, I voted. He's nonchalant. He has a twin. She does all the good work. God is your God's God, yoga and breathing. She is the breath of life. Latex gloves and exhaling the sun over mountains. She is the blamed, the curve, the torn Achilles heel. God is a beat poet. The coming strain, the big question, the control, the last minute mind changer, the finger on the gun, the safety switch. God is the ultimate filter, the event planner, the street cleaner, the thing in the sky that was there and then was not, the ventilator, the death toll. She knows the bodies are coming. God is language, a lisp and stutter. God has Down syndrome, the autistic genius, the only child. From the other side of the tracks, have you ever thought of God as old? The wrinkled hobo and toothless smoker, the girl next door, the square-jawed bad hombre, creator of a new earth between ellipses, growing peonies on hyphens. God is soil and water, the trans angel, the monk making booze, the anorexic gargoyle breaking off a ledge. the movement in the painting. God's number is 8 digits behind iron bars. The noisemaker, the Vuvuzuela in purgatory, guilty. God is doing time. God is a found poem in exile, an unbelievable truth, an asteroid belt crash, mammoth, that sound, that silence. God is tired of rising on Easter. God is trying to figure out the diameter of this pandemic, writing ghostly hymns for the dead. Did you know God was the celestial laureate? Skywritings, the sounds you hear in the morning of birds and wind chimes, speeding cars and barking dogs. Did you think the sound was just that? Commotion? God writes those sounds into existence every day. I know when God is in a Motown mood, a hippie rock, or just a lounging jazz mood. And when it's too quiet, God let the whiskey get the better of him. God likes to drink with me. I listen. I'll read one more poem. I got 2 minutes left. If Roque Dalton were my father, 1, we would have discussions about the lake in the sky, the longing for pupusas de loroco as we sit and fight off the Texas heat, drinking ensalada. I would be smoking, he would be writing to El Salvador with his gray hands, perhaps a poem, a song, a new anthem. If Roque Dalton were my father, he too would have left me, and all I would have left to remember him by would be gunpowder, books, and that lake in the sky. 2, I would be his love, not the kind of love he's proud of, but the kind of love he suffers for. 3, we would sit in silence, we would crave it together, the halt of things, the respect for nature's song, the listening for once, not voices, sounds, together listening for the sound of pain, together searching for the place where it is adhered to. No yelling, no screaming, no man-made sounds, just our souls when walking, the crisp whispers of our clothes when we slip into them, the sighs of the dying, and what of the marimba playing as we swallow black oysters? 4, why do you pant? Your face tumbling downward, sinking into the ashes, my heart. I would ask about the birds and the bees. How can anyone think of making love in this fire? Sun, everything burns, the streets, the walls, our nakedness, even the entrance to heaven. Sometimes we must not even look to the skies. Clouds want to go unseen when the bell tolls at noon. And we will sit in silence on the hillside, watching the smoke, listening to the sirens and gunfire, eating manguitos, trembling. 5, we have both lost good friends, written their names in the sky, poured cold beer on hot asphalt in their memory. I sometimes whistle when I think of the dead. Thank you.
What? That? And then Ed's gonna just drink coffee, como si nada. Like that's slick. Is it good? You're on mute. Do it again. You're still muted.
It's cold coffee, but I said it was.
It's good stuff. And that is, fuck. That's. I can't.
Now they can't play it for the kids because you out here dropping F-bombs.
Sorry. If any teachers are using this, just bleep that part out. Bleep. Just bleep. Ed, thank you. Un milagro. Like that's beautiful.
Thank you.
And then we have vocab with all the things. The floor is yours.
So this reading is supposed to go for a whole other hour, and I don't know how that's going to happen, but you know, we're going to do it. And I just want to point out that Edward Vidaurre is out here flexing on us with his very fancy coffee cup, because that was a very nice looking coffee cup. Look at it. Look at that thing. Look at it. That's great. Still got the price tag on it. We can't hear you what you're saying.
Yeah, it was a gift. And it holds a lot of coffee, so I like to, I usually like to just use a black tumbler when I'm on Zoom and stuff, because Universal Studios isn't paying me,
Right.
But if they want to,
I mean, go Hollywood with us. All right, so I'm gonna start this timer, and we're gonna see how long it takes me to get through these poems. I want y'all all to know that my entire set is dedicated to Dulcie Vuluthekaran, who is my best friend in the entire world that I love with all my heart. This first poem is about her. I wrote this poem back in 2007, and it's called Sacred Tongues, and she knows it because we slammed it together, and that's really cool when you can slam a poem that's written about you. That's how bomb she is. Are our tongues not sacred? So much so that we have buried them in the dirt with our forefathers, wailing. Who am I to speak on her skin? Red and hewn from earth, amber touched by terracotta, she has found her worth and forming her heritage around the sun. She speaks to me in a dialect akin to her own, but our worlds are as similarly vast as the waters that separate our ancestors. She, like me, has birthed no ravens from her womb, but her hair is as dark as onyx excavated at midnight. The corners of her eyes are tight and her lids are wrapped in coal. She stole ancient history from the scrolls of her upbringing and sang me a song of destiny forgotten. With the lips soft as cotton, she speaks the language, reminds me that I am so far removed from my motherland that the sands of my skin can't recognize trade winds blown from the Ivory Coast. And what I yearn for the most is a connection to the root stemming upward from my family tree. I yearn for her to see a little bit of herself when she looks at me. I wish I was not raised in ambiguity, wilting in uncertainty, peeking through plantation quarters shrouded in mystery, stroking indistinguishable traits handed to me through genes and homogeneous origins that I cannot see. I am only knowledgeable of 5 generations that came before me, but the palm of my outstretched hand cannot summon or command a grasp to comprehend who I really am. Never will I know or understand the continent that continually circulates in my veins, won't recognize the correlation of tribal dance rhythms colliding in the pulsing strain of my heart's terrain. I cannot audibly claim alliance to any country within the continent from whence I know my people came. My words seem almost profane in my exchange with this woman who has spoken in the seed that gave birth to her speech. I do not envy, but I admire her as I ask her to teach me to say words so sacred I cannot pronounce. Syllables so unfamiliar to my tongue and ear that the clarity of what I hear cannot translate to my lips. So I sip enlightenment from her as she curves her mouth in a dispensation of grace that evaporates the silence and paints this moment between us in purity. I sit and I sip until I want to dig in the ground and search for a sound so holy that English becomes foreign to me, and I speak sacredly, and I speak sacredly. That's about that woman that's sitting right there. She's so amazing. Thank you, sir. Thank y'all for your claps and your love. So this next poem is kind of similar to the poem that I just read, but different enough. It starts with a land acknowledgement, and I did not capture all of the indigenous people that are native to this land, but it's a land acknowledgement of a few. And the poem itself is called Recovering Self, and I wrote it this year. I acknowledge the Humanos, Tonkawa, Lipan Apache, Qualiotecan people for the land on which I stand. Have you ever apologized for being your authentic self? When was the last time that you put your identity on a shelf, you suffocated your mother's accent, watered down your worth, smothered your father's surname? Your asphyxiation came with an abbreviation. You permitted the demolition of your majesty for a pronounceable nickname. You allowed others the right to choke the life right out of your culture for convenience sake. You licked the erasure right off of their lips. Put a wet nap on your fingertips after smudging apologies all over your history like rouge lipstick. You can't keep politely shrinking yourself and excusing your ancestors' evidence from your day-to-day. What would your grandmother say about this grammatical error you've become? Are you none the wiser or all the more foolish for this ellipsis typed across your character? Do the best parts of you even matter? Don't scatter the ashes of your best attributes. You shatter that mirror into shards. You time capsule the painful memories of your youth, bashful on the breath. And what is left of you? Sitting across the table is your shame. You blame your whole body for being built with a physique now carved of guilt. Let no one intimidate you out of your uniqueness. You inherited the abundance of family traits. Cherish the vessel and let none of your heritage be displaced. Do not place a quilt over your majesty. Tolerating blanketing statements that classify you in ambiguity. The lilt in your tongue is not nearly as heavy as you commiserate over. A legacy of beauty rests heavy upon your shoulders, and are you even brave enough to stomach the immigrant boat ride that it took your lineage to cross over? Be bold, not a bowled over. Decolonize your shivering mouth. Sever the oppression from your skin and reclaim the sacredness of your kin. There is liberation waiting to be uttered on the tip of your tongue. Do not swallow it. Let the bile of new beginnings burn out the things you can unlearn in this lifetime. There is so much you need to learn in this lifetime. And know this, you never have to do anything to earn your ethnicity, but you can afford yourself the luxury of unveiling the mystery. Discover your history. Be free. For there are parts of your identity that are gasping for reclamation. Issue your own self a proclamation. Declare this a season of emancipation. Be free and celebrate the state of being in which you reside. Now is not the time to swallow your pride. Be free. There's that piece. And I want to say shout out to my buddy Dulcie, who changed her last name a few years ago, and make him say it. All right. This poem is about Prince, and she knows why I'm reading this poem. Concert by you. We have this wonderful, we have this really funny, like inside joke about Prince. That he's, well, it was started by Jamie Foxx because he was like, that dude's like timeless. He's like a vampire or something. And then I just kind of built on that. This poem is called Electric Rain. It is the first poem in my book that is published on Flower Song Press, which is Words Publishing House. All right, let's go. Electric heat poured out on pandemonium at full capacity. A high octave trill tolls over a stadium standing in adoration. The artist salaciously licks his guitar strings with tantric fingers and tongue, teasing the room till hypnosis occurs. A low feline purr follows. A slender hip swivel with the magnetic pulse of the band. His petite body becomes a paintbrush. He thrusts wet bristles onto the canvas, a feverish stroke that slathers the soul in tertiary color. And we all become a part of the masterpiece he is creating. Nothing escapes his touch. Nothing escapes his gaze. His voice navigates the air like a ship in calm waters. He is drowning in the leagues of his deep, immersed into a satisfaction so sensual. And we are billowing timeless lyrics that transport us out of body intergalactic. Each note, a dove released into a chorus that surrounds us. The energy of connection penetrates the atmosphere, and we are tuned just like his guitar. We hum with this lavish vibration being swept away into a surreal feeling, living in the moment because we've been seduced into surrender. We want the seduction of this symphonic rapture. We climb the walls for you. You give us every genre. You quench our thirst with a crushed velvet mysterious caress. You tuck passion underneath our skin and we perspire it. We let go with you because you've channeled freedom into the chords of your music. We are your beautiful ones, adorned with your purple rain royalty. Sweet prince. So there's that piece. Thank you very much. I'm going to do one more poem, and then we're going to go to whatever comes next after that. This poem is called Beautiful Creation because Dulcie's beautiful. Thanks. I attune to 432 megahertz. Create God's work in a kente skirt, blurt out truth to attract virtue. The composition of my intuition seeks harmony in a prism of blue. I'm trying to feel the vibe from you based on your resonance. Let love proceed from me and establish precedence. It's truly a gift to be present, unwrapping my frequency real time, fully aligned, becoming aware, giving thread to this tapestry, shedding my soul and my light bare. We can share the best parts of our art when we care. Kiss the concentrated self, feel the trembling there. Let the negativity crumble. I do not digress. I use every breath to needle press this spoiling material into substance. Every particle of my substance supports the arc in my wavelength, giving strength to my vibration. Fortify the fibers of my soul physics. Examine it. Ain't that a beautiful creation? We are all just oxygenated vessels, couriers of electricity and impulse. Our heart rate pulsates to the rhythm of respirations, palpitating. We are all breathing the same air waves, particles of energy. We are all taking in the same sun rays that sustain life, absorbing light. Let the magnetism draw you in, float to me like hydrogen, like electrons orbiting cosmic as a space station. And again, I ask you, ain't that a beautiful creation? Yeah, you are a beautiful creation. So that's that piece. It says that I could go for 6 more minutes, but I could stop also and go on to the next thing and let Lupe read his greatness.
If you want to read another one, you please.
Okay, I'll give you one more. Let's see. So all this good stuff. This one's like a little whimsical piece. It's called Formulating Fantasia, and it's literally about the movie Fantasia and Mickey Mouse. So there's that. The wand wavers. No, okay, I'll start one more time. Formulating Foundation. Fantasia. Oh my God, Formulating Fantasia. All right. The wand wavers in his hand with stardust, bathing the tip and drifting off into expectant space. His pointed hat pierces the air around it. Dandelion seeds of light whimsically dance off the blue-violet cone shape. Tonight, a symphony of alchemist grace will orchestrate a magical production. Tonight, he stands, robed in red, rare form, taking center stage. He ascends the pinnacle of the galaxy, calling mystery into existence. He is the magician curating the harmonious gestures. A well-lit overture lifts from his stick, slicing through the air with rhythmic bursts of beauty. The universe knows no bounds between each bar, each measure. For each beat, he gathers white glove momentum. Like a pendulum arcing high and gliding down, optical illusions merge with occipital reality. A mouse muses with the music, index fingertip extends to exuberance. He flings rays of light. He directs buckets and brooms throughout the night, the constellations and bricked cauldron booming right beneath his command. He is pointing with purpose and poise, and all of the universe understands his fanfare. He has formulated the fantasia with the mind of a magician and his mousy little hands.
Like, that's brilliance.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Like, takes my breath away. Okay, so yay, thank you, all three of you. I'm gonna read one poem, and then we're gonna close out with the conversation about things. Yeah. So we have tons of time. This poem is entitled How We Move. Pins piercing sewing cushion, seeds that perch, fruit that picks itself, sweat beads in puddles, applause. Eyes on a page in an early morn, clovers thrust through concrete, a pulse of lightning in sand, glass stained by the sun, iron filings following magnetic fields, a cajon, a grito, a bolero en la medianoche, shoes determined uphill, a door held open, monarcas fluttering in summer, night slinking across fachadas, pencils on paper, embers catching forests on fire in fields, dancing orange, winter on a malecon, chilled prayers and whispers in an apology that echoes the quiet of 1,000 vigils, tunnels to the other side, lookouts across border walls, tequila down a throat, heartburn after breaking bread together in a glow of candles warm all over the body, fever chills, a whirlwind in the eye sockets, the DJ in the middle of a crossfade pours in the strongest bones of vision, a dream we keep forgetting, hail catching leaves, a wish for you not to catch these hands, a Friday night after weeks of work, wire transfers that provide food, a check in the bank about to rupt, youth in April, viejos in September, a million interconnected howls, the air out of one last good tire, a scream, a shout of you in my ear, fingers slowly combing hair, white ganas speckling in black copetes, unbound books breathing when once banned, hustled poem books sold in parking lots, letters sought after gold, elders telling gargled stories, floodlights on miles of road, meteors skipping atmosphere, sparks from jumper cables, all four chambers when they skip a beat, blood that tells you yes in the temple, all the tribes on a standing rock, a repeated line, a repeated line, a repeated line, a single no, the hum of a light fixture, breathing in unison. Together, mis compañeros, together, fists in a march toward a light. So I'm gonna put all of us in a gallery mode, and then you can undo your speakers so we can talk. So yay, awesome. Thank you, like the three of you, for all of this amazing work. Y'all are dopeness all the time. So I guess the question I have is, what is there one moment where you realized, I think I can do this? Like, I think I can write poems and it'll be okay. Like, was there one moment where it like clicked, or was there several moments where like a thing kept happening, or was there a book that was like, oh, I want to try that did anything?
Who's going first?
I will model, because I'm an educator, so I will model my response. I think the moment I read Poe's Annabelle Lee, like that was, I like I already read a bunch of other poems and a bunch of other works by Poe, but I think it was that love poem that was really creepy, that I was like, I like started breaking down the rhyme in the poem, and then just everything else within it, that I was like, can I replicate that? Can I do something with that? And I think that's what kind of like pulled the line on whether or not I was very much a kid, but it's when I was like, I think this is great, and let me see if I can keep working with this. I think.
Well, I guess for me, it's something I feel like when I was a little kid, I knew from a very young age the things that I wanted to do with my life, and just people kept, coming to me. So I wrote a poem when I was 13 for a very good friend of mine that was murdered, and people kept coming to me after that, asking me to write poetry. For a lot of times it was for people that had passed away, or for people they had crushes on, or something like that. And I realized then, like, if I could capture their emotions in a way that they felt like they wrote it themselves, then that was a powerful thing. And I've just kind of always been able to channel their energy, like being an empath, realizing that you're an empath, because we have to be an empath in order to do this work, and to tell the future, to speak to be historians, and then to be very present in the now, in the moment, talking about what's happening as we're living like real time. And it is a gift, and I don't take it for granted. And although I definitely get exhausted and complain, I don't take it for granted.
That's good. Dulcie, Ed.
I will go next. I want to say that I've always kind of thought in images, and then those images sort of translate into words. It's just kind of how my brain works. And so I've always had a habit of just kind of recording images, and then somehow they'll turn into a poem. One early memory that I have of something that's poem related is that I took my mother, this fantastic poem that was written, I'm going to phrase it like that, was written in a scented diary that I have. And it was like, I was 6 or 7, and it was about my love is coming from afar, the fields and all this, my doe-shaped eyes. And then I got an ass whooping because I had copied from Song of Solomon's in the Bible, and I had tried to pass it off as my own work, and my mom figured it out. But I think from that moment, I knew, like, I'm drawn to this. I want to write like this, but I also don't want to get my butt beat by my mother. So maybe I should try to write my own stuff, since I'm seeing things in images anyway.
I like that. That's dope.
Okay.
Well, I think for me, I mean, I didn't start writing poetry until I want to say my 30s. And I'm 48 now. But I've always been someone who appreciated songwriters. And I always respected and loved the music that was, especially sung by the people who wrote it. So I was a big Smokey Robinson fan, Jose Alfredo Jimenez, Tracy Chapman, and then it's just grown. But I've always, didn't take it seriously until I took care of the other part of literature, which was understanding what I was reading. So, I mean, I had a hard time reading for a long time books and understanding them. And so I trained myself, or I guess I learned from reading just a lot, was in going back to the pages and just rereading until I understood what I was reading. That I thought that maybe I could do some, form of writing. So what I used to do, I would just love to, like, write down lyrics. I would like to copy the pages from dictionaries, when I was younger. And so not until I came to Texas did I become a poet. And when I thought I could be one was when I gathered my little binder of poetry that I had typed out and went to a writers forum in San Benito, at the Narciso Martinez Cultural Arts Center. And, it was something that was going on there for many, many years, and they were just getting together. And I showed up with my binder and I signed my name up to read, and it was scary. And I think not until after I read and people came up to me and said, that was good, or you need to come back next month, or something like that, did I feel like I was accepted in that community. And so I think I was just kind of training myself, or just grooming myself to become a writer without really thinking about it, by learning how to read. And for a while I was afraid because I thought, poetry was, I didn't know they were living poets, I was just ignorant to that. I was always working. I was never in academia. I finished high school and that was it for me. I didn't continue. And so my understanding of literature and where it was coming from was very, very minimal. And so I also thought that poetry was only rhyming. And so that's another thing that to me was very difficult, to rhyme and create, have to think too much, where I was more of I want to write a story, but I don't want to look for a word that's going to rhyme with something that I'm trying to say, because then it felt a little off for me. But um, I think that's pretty much the gist of it.
I love that. Like everybody's coming at it from such a distinct angles. It's like that's the beauty of like how all this works out. Yeah. Um, is there one what's so like sometimes I stick on words or ideas and I keep finding myself like not trapped, but like continuously finding one particular image that like sticks out in the work. And I keep finding I'm always making reference to either the ocean or to bones. And like in your work, do you ever find a repetitive like image that keeps popping up across any of your work?
I think in the beginning when I would write, it was a lot to do with like my upbringing in the ghetto, in the projects, and it was bullets and chalk outlines and blood and stuff like that. And now, move to Texas and I think with a little bit of activism and nature, I find myself, I guess writing about rivers and wind and trees and immigration and politics and stuff like that. But I see it's sometimes it's redundant, but it fits, and it feels right. So until something, I mean, I write totally different from what I used to write when I first started. So just seeing how it's evolving is good without having to change too much or 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 just overthinking it, but just letting it, uh, come out as it feels.
Yeah, organically. Yeah, that makes sense. Ladies,
You want to go first, Dulcie? Oh, no, you go. You go.
Dulcie, go.
Oh, okay, yes. So I lately have been writing using a lot of like weird like bodily stuff imagery. So it'll turn up in the weirdest places, sort of like stains, like armpit stains, and the smell of pus and disease and death, and smelling like death, and things coming out of your body that are death-like, cracked teeth, things like that. I mean, and they show up in really sort of like weird pairings. I might, compare a building that's been bombed to a cracked tooth or something like that. But it's the idea of a broken body is something that I've been not really intentionally exploring, but it kind of shows up when I'm writing, and probably because I'm also sort of getting to that age where I'm starting to fall apart myself. So I'm thinking about things like that, like sitting down and not being able to get back up and cracking my teeth and having to go to the dentist and, things like that. So I think I've been thinking a lot about like the body and the decay of the body. And so it's been showing up a lot in my work in just like really weird and unexpected ways.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I also liken it to people who have experienced war firsthand. If you've seen it with your own two eyes, then you understand the destruction of man and the capabilities of our ability to be self-destructive. And so you explore those images a lot in your writing. I think everybody in this readings, this series today is super heavy on imagery, and sometimes uncomfortable imagery, because that's what I would call it. I would call it uncomfortable imagery, but it resonates, like you have a visceral reaction to it. I think for me, I think I'm the oddball in this pairing, for all of us, but I'm happy to be in here. All the pieces I did tonight had connections that you could hear some of the same words visited from piece to piece to piece. And sometimes I'm doing it intentionally, and sometimes I don't even realize I'm doing it on some levels, but I know that my music, there's music in my poetry. That piece that you read last, Lupe, was super musical. Like, I was like, man, the way you were playing with these words and playing with sounds, super rhythmic and super musical. And that's what I like in my work too. I like to identify, obviously, with she lives in music, exploring that theme, but music always comes up in my writing, always. Even when I try to get away from it, somebody comes to me and like, hey, can you write about this? And I'm like, okay. And it's so easy to do. So yeah.
So again, thank all of you for such brilliant and amazing work. This was a great opportunity to catch up with all of you and to share great poetry from across the great state of Texas. And Ed, are you in San Benito or are you in McAllen?
Yeah, McAllen.
Yeah. Ed's in McAllen, Andrea's in San Antonio, Dulcie's in Iowa Colony. I'm in Houston. We're doing great things. Thank you, the three of you, for such amazing work. And if you were out there watching us on YouTube, check back in October. I will have a different set of poets that'll be reading, and catch every single one of these individuals on Twitter, and go look them up because they're amazing. And thank you, all of you, and y'all have a really great night. Bye.